Hello everyone, and welcome to a brand new Gaming Academy guide. My name's Alan, a Grandmaster player in multiple seasons. In today's guide, I'm bringing you 10 must-know tips that will instantly help you level up your game in League of Legends, and you can start applying them now. Whether you're a beginner or a more experienced player, I'll be showing you exactly what you might be missing, and why you haven't quite reached that dream division just yet. So, stick with me until the end, and don't forget to share your thoughts. Let me know if I've convinced you to step up your game. Now, let's kick things off by talking about the mindset you need to improve. A lot of players set goals that sound great on paper but don't really help them develop as players. For instance, people often say, I want to reach Diamond or I want to be better at the game, but these are more like end goals, not the stepping stones that will actually help you get there. Instead, try focusing on the specifics. Set goals like I need to hit 8 to 9 CS per minute in every match in the next 10 games. I'm not going to die more than 5 times, or even, I'm only going to play champions I've mastered and ranked, not those I'm still learning. Once you start nailing these things, better CS per minute, fewer deaths, and honing your expertise on a specific role and set of champions, you'll start seeing real improvement. And soon enough, that climb to the top will begin. For our second tip in this guide, I highly recommend becoming an OTP that's a one-trick pony of specific champions. His strategy can make it so much easier for you to climb the ranks in League of Legends. Now, if you're unfamiliar, being an OTP means focusing on mastering a single champion. This intense dedication gives you incredible insight into that champ's mechanics, leading to some insane skill improvements and a noticeable boost in your win rate. Rather than playing a bunch of different champions, each in a different game, it's far more effective to play the same champion you love in every match. Here's why. First off, your dexterity skyrockets because you face a variety of opponents and situations that help you adapt to different matchups. And because you're so comfortable with the mechanics, you can put more energy into focusing on the macro game, like positioning, map awareness, and objectives. Picture this: a player trying Smolder for the very first time goes up against an Aurelion Sol OTP. Not only is that new Smolder player going to lose, they're going to get completely crushed. On the flip side, if that same Aurelion Sol OTP faces a Smolder OTP, the game is suddenly a lot more balanced. Even if Smolder counters Aurelion Sol, the OTP's knowledge and experience will help them manage the situation effectively. So here's the move: choose 2 roles you enjoy the most, and then pick 2 champions for each role to play consistently. Trust me, you'll start noticing the difference in no time. Now that we've nailed down the mindset you need and the champions you should focus on to start winning, let's move on to the most important part of the guide. But before we dive in, I've noticed something: only a very small percentage of those watching are subscribed to the channel. So don't hesitate, hit that subscribe button now and become a part of our awesome community. Alright, let's continue. Another critical factor you need to consider in ranked matches is the gold per second you generate throughout the game. Every decision you make should aim to keep that gold flowing in your favor. For example, imagine you're playing mid lane. You have a choice: either roam to the bot lane and try for a risky gank, or stay mid and collect 2 waves of minions that have stacked up while your lane opponent recalled. A low elo player might instinctively leave the mid to chase the bot lane gank, hoping to secure a kill with no real guarantee of success. Meanwhile, a high elo player makes a smarter decision: they clear the mid lane waves, head back to base to buy their items, and return to lane on time and fully prepared. This situation perfectly highlights how wave management and controlled decision-making can put you ahead. The player who went for the gank, they're likely to fall behind. The one who stayed in control, they're ahead on gold and items and ready for what's next. Here's another example to drive the point home, this time between 2 junglers. One jungler decides to do a full clear of both their bot and topside jungle, while the other rushes through just the top side and immediately tries to gank without even knowing if the enemy has placed a ward in that area. And remember, this is during that crucial first minute, when the first trinket wards are often still active. Now, let's see what happens. The jungler who completed the full clear quickly recalls, heads back to base, buys their items, and returns to their jungle to continue clearing the next camps. By the time they go for a gank, the enemy wards have likely expired, and they're equipped with fresh items, making their gank much more likely to succeed. Meanwhile, the other jungler, who rushed the gank and wasted valuable time, falls behind. They're forced to continue clearing their jungle, only after recalling much later, missing key opportunities to stay ahead. This is yet another clear example of decision-making differences between a low elo player and a high elo player. The examples could go on, but what I want you to take away is this: if you want to climb the ranks, you have to shift your focus to the macro game, making the right decisions, accumulating as much gold as possible, and being ready for team fights when they happen. Always aim to be ahead of your opponents, applying pressure to give your teammates space to grow as well. It's normal that some teammates might play poorly or might not have the same drive to climb as you do. But you can be the difference maker by staying ahead in items and level, making the right decisions, and constantly keeping the pressure on the enemy team. Now that we've covered decision-making, let's dive into the next crucial tip: abusing dead time in the game. Dead time, as I like to call it, is when you have nothing to do, but that's precisely when you can create opportunities to get ahead. For example, let's say you're a jungler. You've cleared all your camps, and now you're in a period of dead time until they respawn. This is a perfect moment to slip in a quick gank without falling behind. No wasted time, no wasted opportunities. Or take top lane, you're sitting at full HP, no reason to go back to base, and you've already pushed your wave into the enemy's tower. Guess what? You're in dead time. This is the ideal opportunity to head down the river and check if the crab is still up, or see if the enemy jungler is doing krugs, maybe even place a ward without missing any minions. And this concept applies to mid lane too. You've just pushed your wave into the enemy tower, perfect dead time to roam down to bot lane, grab a quick assist or kill, and get back before the enemy wave crashes into your tower. No missed CS, but plenty of potential gain. The possibilities are endless. And trust me, abusing dead time in low elo is super easy. I've experienced this firsthand while playing on a Smurf account. In over 21 games, I was always ahead in level and farm, and out of those 21 games, I only lost 2. And yes, losing 2 games is normal. You're not going to win them all. But if you follow the strategies I'm laying out for you, your win rate will be significantly higher than what it is right now. Since we've touched on the fact that your teammates might not always be the strongest, here's a crucial tip: never try to predict what they'll do, because they won't do it. For example, as a jungler, after you finish clearing your camps and head toward the river to secure the crab, don't assume your mid laner will come to help you, even if they should. Chances are, they won't. You have to approach every moment of the game as if you're playing solo, because you truly don't know what your teammates' intentions are. And just to be clear guys, we're talking about low elo here, not every situation in the game. The idea is to wait and observe what your teammates are actually doing instead of making risky plays while hoping they'll back you up. They might not have even noticed the play you're trying to make. In low elo, the smartest approach is to stick to the basic mechanics of the game, focus on farming, gaining a level advantage, and staying close to your team. If they're struggling to keep up with you, then you need to stay close to them to help out. Stick to the fundamentals, and you'll give your team a better chance to stay in the game. And more importantly, you'll avoid making plays that rely on unpredictable teammates. Another crucial tip, often overlooked by many, is to watch replays both of your own games and of top players who use the same champions you play, and to regularly use the practice tool. Let's take a moment to think back to the past. For instance, remember the legendary jungler Insec, who performed that iconic Lee Sin move that now bears his name. If no one had seen it, how long do you think it would have taken for someone else to invent it? Or how about Xbiki's famous backdoor with Kassadin? Once players saw these incredible mechanics, they quickly became staples of the game, something people try in almost every match now. What I want to emphasize here is that we need to put our egos aside and learn from those who've already reached the level we want to be at. How did they do it? What items do they build? How do they play the early game? We can answer all of these questions simply by watching their replays. At the same time, analyzing your own replays helps you pinpoint your mistakes. And yes, I'll be honest, it can be boring, but it's a necessary step that I went through myself to become a Grandmaster. Now let's talk about the practice tool. It's extremely useful. Why else would it exist? Think about it: if you want to play champions like Qiyana, Aphelios, or Aurelion Sol, it's much easier to jump into ranked after you've practiced their combos and mechanics in the practice tool. That's where you perfect your moves so that when you enter ranked, you masterfully execute those combos and surprise your enemies. So take this advice to heart. Use the practice tool, study replays, and if you don't notice a difference after giving it a real shot, feel free to come back here and argue with me. Another key piece of advice I have for you is learning when to stop playing, and equally important, don't use the chat to flame your teammates. Here's the thing: after losing a match or 2 in a row, if you start feeling tilted, resist the urge to hit the ranked play button again. Take a step back. You can switch to flex queue with friends, watch a video, or just take a break. Why? Because when you re-enter the game tilted, your performance will drop. You won't be able to focus properly, you'll miss critical details, and you're more likely to lose again. Or if you do win, it'll be a much tougher grind. And let's talk about flaming. If you start flaming your teammates, it's not going to magically make them play better. In fact, it's going to have the opposite effect. They'll tilt, play worse, maybe even feed intentionally, or worst case, leave the game entirely. If you really want to stay focused, I highly recommend muting your chat during solo queue. This way you won't be tempted to flame, and you won't see the flames coming your way either. Trust me, I know it's tough. I used to struggle with this myself. I'm the type of person who gets angry easily, and it took me a while to get over this hurdle. But once I did, I started to see real success in the game. It's just not worth arguing over nothing or sabotaging your own progress because of a heated moment. So take it from me, block the chat, stop playing when you feel tilted, and you'll notice a huge improvement in both your gameplay and your overall experience. There are plenty more tips out there, but most of them depend on specific situations, so I'll be making separate guides to dive into those. But before we wrap up, I've got one last tip for you, one I like to call a double-edged sword playing duo. Finding a partner to queue up with can make the game more enjoyable and even give you a slight edge in coordination. If you're an ADC main, look for a solid support, or if you're a jungler, team up with a mid laner who complements your playstyle. That way you can create synergy and have more impactful plays, and here's the other side of the sword: if your duo partner doesn't share the same goals as you, or isn't as focused, it's just like playing solo again. In fact, it might even be worse, because now you're relying on someone who's not on the same page. That's why it's essential that your partner has the same drive to win and is willing to communicate and coordinate. Without that, duo queuing can backfire. At the end of the day, it's up to you to decide whether to play solo queue or duo queue every now and then. It can either help or hurt depending on the partner you choose. And with that said, that's my guide for you today. If you found this helpful, don't forget to give it a like and hit the subscribe button to stay updated on all my future guides. And hey, drop a comment below, let me know if there's something I missed or if you've got any questions. I'm always happy to chat and invite you to be part of our growing community. See you next time.